Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Trail Network podcast. I'm Leah Yingling, and I'm hosting this week with a very special guest and my very special husband, Mike McMonagle. Welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Wow, thanks for having me. This is pretty cool.
So I will be the sole host this week. Mike and I got to share some special news with the world this past week about us expecting our first child. And we thought it'd be really fun to kind of debrief that a little bit, talk about the last couple months, talk about what it's like to be pregnant in the trail running space, what it means to plan a trail running season around that, talk a little bit about what we're nervous about when it comes to parenting. And honestly, we haven't done much planning or writing any questions down here, so it might be a little bit of a round robin of questions that Mike and I want the other person to answer. So
There's
Mike,
probably a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But Mike, I'm really happy you're joining us. I think this is your first time, actually second time on the podcast. You were one of our first episodes as part of Further last year, which we are about. It is March 10th when we were recording, and I think this is about our 1-year anniversary from Further last year.
I think like probably 3-ish days into Further last year.
Ugh.
I think you said there's probably a quote that somebody could recall that was something to the effect of, can we just stop running right now and start having babies? I'm pretty sure that happened.
I think that happened about 365 days ago.
Yeah.
I remember it vividly. I think it was like 48 hours or so. I came in on a lap around like probably mile 200 something. And I think I looked at you and Caleb and Morgan and I said, why am I doing this? Can we just start a family?
Yeah, this is dumb. You still had Western States on your mind later that summer too, later that year. And you're like, I don't need to run any more of these things. Let's hang it up for a little while. And here we are.
It is funny how your mind you can be 200 some miles into something and your mind just goes to like life planning like that.
Yeah. But then you reprioritized. You kind of changed your mind again. Right. And then we're back on the Western Quad Rock, Western States, Run Rabbit. Like, I mean, there were still a couple more 100-milers even before baby making time came.
Well, it is funny. I feel like that's the theme of our last like 5 years when it came to the conversation of starting a family. Like, not these false starts by any means, but like always having the idea that we wanted a family. And, you know, everybody always tells you that there's never a good time. But I think, as an ultra runner and somebody that also is passionate about like career outside of running, it's really tough to try to find that good balance of what is quote unquote a good time in life to start settling down.
There's never a bad time either, though.
No.
I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
We've been, I think, we moved to Utah, 2016, 2017. And I think in those years, like in 2017, we probably told people, including like maybe some of our family members, that like, oh yeah, like we'll probably get engaged soon, get married in the next 1 to 2 years, and then probably start trying to have a family like within a year or so after that.
Well, can we back up a little bit? If you asked my dad if he could marry me like in like probably 2017. So, and then
that's part of the timeline. I talked to your parents about marrying you in April of 2017, right? I think April 2017. I talked to your parents about,
and you were the first of all the husbands in the family,
of all the now husbands.
Yeah.
That was April of that year, because that sort of falls in line with the timeline that I think we had in mind for ourselves, and that we told our friends and family back then was like, I think, and what I told your parents in April was, you know, if they would have me as a son-in-law, I would love to see if you'd have me as a husband, probably sometime like, I think I said like later that summer. Actually, what my plan was, now that I remember this, oh man, I was such a dweeb. My plan, I was in Western States that year.
This is 2017.
I had a spot in the 2017 Western States.
I'm going to interrupt you and talk about Mike's dumb luck when it comes to Western States. So Western States was Mike's second 100-miler back in 2013.
Yeah.
He got in there with the Burning River 100 in Ohio being his only qualifier, only 100 prior to that. Got in probably off of 1 year of trying, 1 or 2 years of trying.
Yeah.
And then got in again in 2017 off of like a ticket or two.
Yep.
Granted, the lottery was much easier to get into back then.
Yeah. It was still probably, I mean, even when I got in 2017, I remember, I'm pretty sure it was single digit percentage odds.
And then
so
this
not
past
high.
year to run in 2024, Mike was like 30th on the wait list and did indeed end up, he would have been very close to getting, he would have gotten his name drawn. However, he chose to opt for photography projects instead. So Mike has, in theory, gotten into Western States like 3 times in the last
I've gotten
10
into
years.
Western, actually, no, you've now gotten into Western States more times than I have, but you earned all yours.
Yes, you earned
right?
yours
Yeah,
too.
you earned all yours.
Yeah.
Anywho,
what was your plan?
Yeah, so that year was to be, 2017 was to be my second time running Western States. But my first time running Western States in a relationship with someone who I thought I could see myself marrying. And so I had a plan that year to run Western States, and hopefully you would be there pacing me. And I'm pretty sure I wanted to propose. I wonder if people would do this. I don't know. This sounds really dweeby now. I wasn't going to propose at the finish line. I wanted to propose when we got out of the river. So I was
cool.
Have I not told you this?
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure that was my plan, was you were going to be pacing me, ideally, like, whether it was the last 40 or like maybe from the near side of the river to the finish, Rucky Chucky to the finish, something. So cross the river with me.
Yeah.
And then it was either like right before we got in the river or when we got out of the river was when I wanted to ask you to marry me. And then that way we would run the final, 20 miles or so of Western States as fiancés.
Oh, where would you have kept the ring?
I would. I don't know. Oh, I mean, I proposed to you on a
run. Yeah.
12 miles into a 40-mile run or
That's
so.
true.
So wherever I kept it for that would have probably been suitable enough. But yeah, so that was my plan that year, was to propose during Western States. And the story is not nearly as romantic in the sense that I just had another one of my typical like overuse knee injuries and ended up pulling out of Western States that year, which I remember sending that email. And I think that was the first year that they had the wait list.
Yeah, it was.
So I remember thinking, at least my spot is going to somebody else now. And I'm not just wasting one of the coveted Western States spots with one of my stupid injuries.
Yeah. Well, this is a great point, though, in general. Like, we have all these plans concocted in our mind of how we think things will ideally play out. And, they never do.
Yeah.
They never do. And I think, like, in my mind, when we had met, you had asked my parents eventually if you could marry me. I knew you had asked them. So, like, I went through not just one summer of thinking you were going to propose to me, but, like, a year and a half of, like, every big, exciting excursion we would go on, every big trip. I was like, oh, this has got to be it.
Yeah, and I loved to deliberately sort of mess with your mind on that, too, because I knew you knew.
Yeah. And I think the same can be said for just, like, the stage we're at right now, which is starting a family. I recall vividly, it was 2019 timeframe. I just run, I think, the Bear 100, just had run like Laurel Highlands. And I think I was telling you on a run, we were up at Brighton running to Clayton Peak. And I said, I think I want to be a little more serious about ultra running next year.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I said, I think I want to have...
It was a morning, wasn't it?
It was.
It was a nice morning going up to Clayton Peak. Yeah.
I remember what I was wearing too. And we were talking, I was like, I want to be serious about ultra running next year. Like, I think I can have a shot at being decent at this. And then after that, I want to start a family. So that was 2019. I was saying that. So I was like, okay, 2020 is going to be the year. And then 2020, was 2020.
Everybody else got pregnant in 2020.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the cool things to do.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
And then,
but not us.
No. And then we just kind of like kept it rolling and postponed those plans of like being competitive in the sport till 2021. And then I had a good season in 2021, but like kind of just on the cusp of what I would consider like the success that like I wanted, which was chasing a golden ticket, getting to Western States, and all of those goals that kind of like sequentially follow. So then that was 2021. And then I think in 2022 was when I got a golden ticket to Western States.
Yeah.
And then,
you went to Bandera,
mm-hmm.
just missed one there
Mm-hmm.
with like third place, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then you got one a couple months later at Canyons 2022. Yeah. So that was first Western
mm-hmm.
States entry.
And then what they don't tell you about Western States is like, I mean, they do tell you this. When you get top 10, you get invited back. And it's
they
really...
definitely tell you that. That's like one of the, if people know one thing about Western States, I mean, sometimes that's it.
I guess where I was going with that is they don't tell you how hard it is to not come back.
To say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, not that I fell victim to that cycle, because I absolutely loved my last 3 Western States cycles, but you get stuck in the ringer that is the Western States, like UTMB cycle. Like, for example, getting top 10 at Western States every year gets you invited back. If you also have a good time at Western States or like a top 3 or top 5 performance, you also get into UTMB. So it actually makes it quite easy to just like center your year around those races and not do much more outside of that, which is what I did the last couple of years, which was very fun, but very easy to fall victim to.
Yeah. So our timeline kept just kind of pushing.
And I will say, like, I feel like one of our official moments when we were like, okay, let's start this family thing was probably like towards the end of 2023, I think, or 2022. It was right before I signed with Lululemon. And when I signed with them, in my mind, I was like, I think I want to start a family soon. And then when I signed with them, they're like, hey, we've got this idea of a 6-day event, and it's going to be in March, which is 15 months from whatever that point was.
Right, yeah.
So then I'm like, all right.
I remember that
another
feeling
15
a little awkward, months. Yeah.
But
it felt worth it for to just sort of shift some plans in life around a little bit.
Yeah, and it was.
And I think it was, yeah.
Even though I might have felt the way I did at 48 hours last year, it was all worth it.
So yeah, that's all to say, I guess, that if you had asked us in 2017 what our future looked like, we probably would have said, we were what, probably 26, 27 years old, something like that. And we probably would have said, yeah, we're going to get married probably in the next year or so. And then probably start trying to have kids, hopefully another year or so after that. So that would have meant we would have had our first child if things had gone sort of to plan and how they're going now. Like we would have had our first child probably 2019, 2020. Yeah. We'd have at least like a 4-year-old right now, at least. Maybe even twins.
Oh my God, that's, yeah.
Maybe like a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old or something, who knows?
Yeah.
But here we are, 30, about to turn 34.
Yeah.
And I'm 34. And we're about to have our first kid. So it's kind of cool that how things have changed, and I don't regret it. I mean, everything's been great. I don't regret anything. No,
I don't regret a single step. It's, we look back and reflect on kind of the path and like the life decisions that brought us here. And yeah, it's easy to be like, what ifs along the way, but it's also really easy
what
to
if you had stayed with your ex-boyfriend?
Yeah, what if? I'd be in Pennsylvania right now.
8 years, right? Yeah. That was a long one.
That was a long one. Yeah, Mike officially became my longest relationship. What was it, like last year? So, yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I should get a belt buckle for that.
Yeah. 10 years and kicking.
Man, most people probably would have dumped me by now. And
well, no, we do. Mike and I do each have claims to fame in this relationship in general, and we have both never been broken up with in relationships. So we're really going head to head here. Yeah. And it's whoever's going to break first.
Yeah. Unstoppable force meets immovable object.
Which one am I?
Which one do you want to be?
I think the unstoppable force.
Probably, yeah. 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 Never been dumped, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be.
It is.
Anywho, so yeah, things are coming along on the Mike and Leah journey of relationships and race planning of the last couple of years. I guess the last like 5 years. But yeah, we're here. It is, we are at week 17 of pregnancy, which is really fun. We made it through
Or week 18, right?
Oh,
You
yeah.
were 17 weeks.
Yeah, we'll be
last weekend,
we'll be
so-
18 this week.
Yeah.
Which is significant. We're almost halfway.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Mike I just started feeling pregnant today, which is nice.
How has pregnancy felt for you compared to maybe how you expected? Because I'm sure you've probably spent a lot of your life kind of wondering what it feels like to be pregnant or thinking about what it might be like to be pregnant.
Well, when you think about that, you often just think about like what it's going to be like to be like 7 to 9 months pregnant. You don't really think about the 1 through 5 month period, which is where I've been living right now. And
so did you have expectations for how
well, I
one
mean,
through 5
everybody
might feel?
tells you like, oh my God, the first trimester is terrible. You're going to have morning sickness. You're going to be tired, this and that. And I will say I felt surprisingly decent compared to what people say. I had pretty limited nausea. I was very tired all the time. And I think I was a waste of life most days when I wasn't working.
That's harsh, but
It kind of was. And my main symptom's just been like insomnia, which I actually did not know was a symptom.
did you know it was contagious?
My insomnia keeps you up. Well, your snoring keeps me up, so.
Snoring is also contagious.
But no, yeah, I think I've been pleasantly surprised with how decent I felt most of the time here. I felt really good running through 13 weeks, which was a whole trimester, which is awesome.
Did that surprise you?
That surprised me. Yeah, like I was, I think as most of our listeners know, I'm not like a super high mileage runner. I usually, I don't know, I do somewhere between like 50 to 65 miles most of the time, which
It's
might
not
be
fair.
like,
It's not fair
what?
that you do so good.
Sorry. So I'm usually running like 9 to 11 hours a week. And I was able to keep that up for like all of like the full first trimester. And I even
You're
joined
still
you.
running, like...
I joined you on your awesome 50K run on New Year's Day at Liberty Park.
Yeah, that was what, probably 6,
about 8 or 9
7,
weeks. Yeah.
9? Okay. Yeah.
So
You were
yeah, I
cruising.
will say though, the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've been feeling like the things that they warn you about with like pelvic floor stuff. And I saw an awesome pelvic floor PT, Lindsay Centrowitz, up in Park City. She comes to your house and does pelvic floor PT for you. So I did that in the first trimester, which has been awesome, just to like be preventative with things, which usually I'm like a reactive type person and I'm not that prepared. So I was very proud of myself for that.
We had running up for air RUFA at Grandeur Peak. Let's see, that was first week of February. So you were probably...
I was 13 weeks.
13 weeks?
Yeah. I want to try to pull up the text that I sent to Megan Roach
During RUFA?
Beforehand, because I was not positive that it was going to be a good idea.
Yeah, you were... Oh, well, that reminds me. I actually want to back up a little more. That just reminded me of... we were both signed up for the Hellgate 100K.
Yes. I forgot about that already.
In December. And we were kind of questioning whether or not it was a good idea for several sort of logistical reasons. We had some family things going on kind of in the background that were also sort of hanging some of the decisions in the balance, right? So like, specifically like 5 days, maybe like 7 days before the Hellgate 100K in December, which is in Virginia, we were sitting right there in that room over there and trying to figure out, like, make a final decision. We're like, should we cancel this flight that we have in 2 days or 3 days, or should we take this flight? And if we take the flight, do we run the race for sure, or do we get there and decide day of or whatever? And ultimately, the decision to not run Hellgate, we made that decision like 5 or 6 days in advance of the race, and it was because I think I maybe wasn't feeling great or something, so I was a little up in the air personally anyway. And then for you, you consulted a close friend whose
I just found out I was pregnant.
Medical advice you trust very much, and you knew that you were, like we had known maybe for a week or two at that point, right? That like you were pregnant.
5 days.
And so you were maybe like 5 weeks pregnant, I think, and consulted your friend who whose medical advice and personal advice we trust very much. And she's sort of like,
she told me I would like, if anything bad were to happen, if I ran 100K and like something did go awry with my pregnancy, she's like, I know you, and I know you would blame yourself.
Right.
So she's like, take that information and do with it what you want, but like, just be mindful of how you would feel if something went awry. Which
like sounds like probably physically very, very minimal risk of like, if you're used to running 50Ks, 100Ks, 100 miles when you're 5 weeks pregnant, if you chose to do that, like sounds like the consensus was probably a very low risk thing for you to do. But if there was like an incidental problem that were to occur, or if you were to trip and something like that, that was kind of the deciding factor, was like, couldn't probably live with that decision or that outcome. So decided not to do Hellgate 100K. Ended up being a great decision for everybody.
Yeah.
Quick break to thank Osprey for sponsoring this episode of the show. Osprey has been a leading maker of premium outdoor backpacks and bags for over 50 years. There are many reasons I turned to Osprey, but one is because of their pillars of sourcing sustainable materials. By incorporating recycled and Blue Sign approved materials into their products, they're helping to keep harmful chemicals out of our environment. Osprey has eliminated PFAS-based durable water repellent in 100% of their textile products, and as of fall 2024, 100% of Osprey's products have 100% recycled content in the lining fabric, and 99% of Osprey's products have 100% recycled content in the main body fabric. Osprey continues to reduce environmental impacts and produce more sustainably designed products every year. This is the type of company I want to support, and I know you do too. Learn more at osprey.com. Now back to the show.
Fast forward then, because then the next event probably that you were scheduled for in this pregnancy, right, would have been RUFA 6 hour.
Yeah. And I do RUFA 6 hour every year.
Yeah.
And when people ask me, like, if I ever want to do any other distances at RUFA, I tell them the 6 hours is the best. And I will never do a distance different than the 6 hour. It's lovely.
RUFA is the Grandeur Peak RUFA, which is the original Running Up for Air event. It happens here in Salt Lake City every February. And it's 6, 12, or 24 hours of laps on Grandeur Peak, which is roughly like a 6 mile lap, 3 miles one way, 3 miles up, 3 miles down. And I think about 2,500, 2,600 feet per lap. And so, Leah, I think for years now, has signed up for the 6 hour and then volunteer in the morning on Saturday, and then volunteered at the aid station and tear down for the afternoon and evening. But usually in the 6 hour, you're accustomed to doing like 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, you can do like comfortably 3 laps under like 4.5 hours for something.
You can do that.
Yeah. And then I think last year I did 4 laps, which was my PR there, which I was very happy with. And this year, I think healthy non-pregnant Leah was like full steam ahead. I was like, let's do 4 laps.
Yeah. But then so I was down at the aid station at the bottom of Grandeur Peak, and I think it was it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Like the condition, like the trail was in complete shitty shape. Like the day before, some snow fell in sort of the few hours before the event started on Friday evening. Snowed a little bit into the first couple hours of it Friday evening for the 24 hours and 12 hour runners overnight. Amazing conditions. Everybody showed up in the morning for the 6 hour and 12 hours that started Saturday morning. Beautiful bluebird day. The trail was packed out and in great shape all of a sudden. And then there was a great group of people, like so many awesome people doing it, which there always are. It's such a cool community event. But then you specifically had Martina and Anna, at least, right? Mm-hmm. Both in the 6 hour, I think, with you. So I was down at the aid station and, unsure. This was kind of your first like bigger run that you were lining up for with child.
With child.
And that's fun to say. And so we were both probably a little uncertain of like how you were going to do, like how you're going to feel. You came down after a lap, just all smiles, like talking with Martina and Anna, having a great time, it looked like. Quick little turnaround at the aid station, and off you went on lap number 2. Then you came down after your second lap, and still like laughing and chatting, it looked like, with Martina and Anna. But you kind of like pulled me aside a little bit, and I think what you told me is that you felt like your uterus was falling out on the downhill.
Yeah.
Which was concerning.
Yeah. And I also think this was like the first moment I felt like anything pregnancy related, truly.
Yeah, right.
And it's really tough. Like when I was even going into, it's hard to find research on like what you should or shouldn't
How
do.
many laps of Grandeur Peak should I do?
Yeah, like you're not going to find that online whenever you're 12 to 13 weeks pregnant. And like you just want somebody on the internet to say, hey, I did this too and I was okay, quite frankly.
Right.
So it's hard to like know what is good, what is safe, all these things. But I think what it comes down to a lot of the time is like if you are accustomed to a certain amount of like distance and just like, I mean, effort level too, making sure you're keeping it like in a safe spot. Yeah, just like being in tune with your body and knowing like what your limits are. And like your limits definitely adjust with pregnancy. But I think on that second lap, I came downhill and that was the first time I felt anything like pregnancy related.
Yeah.
And it was like my bladder on my like pelvic floor just feeling like heavy. And I came down and I think I told you, I was like, I don't know if this is it for today. And I was like, well, I'll try one more uphill because I felt great on the uphill and like I felt great aerobically. But then the downhill was just like that first little sense of, is this what pregnancy is going to be?
And so then while you had pulled me aside and were sort of expressing what you were feeling and sort of trying to figure out what your next move was, I think it like maybe it was Martina was right there and started heading out on her next lap. And I think maybe had just left also too or something. And you're like, well, all right, screw it. I'll see how it feels. So I think you did another climb.
Yeah. Felt good.
And then maybe took it a little easier on the next lap descent and then called it after that, right?
Yeah. I think my saving grace was I knew that Alexis Krellin was out there with her 2 daughters. Or I guess she was out there at least with like Marlo and Phoebe. And I was like, well, worst case scenario, if I can't do a downhill here, I will just find them and hike with them. Yeah.
So that was kind of first experience with a big run while pregnant.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from that or take anything away from that into what has now been another month of running?
Yeah.
Or any advice like maybe for other
what
people?
was interesting there was 13 weeks. And that was something Megan Roach had kind of told me when I told her I was pregnant was like, feel free to use like a belly band earlier on than you think you need to, because like your body just needs support with all the changes it's going through. And, you know, even today, I feel like I still am not really, I want a belly and I don't really have one quite yet, but you just need some extra support. And I think that's what I've been doing since like week 13 after RUFA. I was like, I need some contraptions.
Did you feel like RUFA, did you take any unnecessary risks there or anything? Or
no, and I think that was good. It's like I mean I've done grandeur so much that I know what like my pushing effort is on grandeur and I know what my like easy controlled effort is. And also like you can just recover on the downhills too. So it was really fun. And I honestly didn't know like when I first got pregnant if that was something I would actually do. And I was a little nervous to do it, but it felt great. I ended up running, I think that day for just over 4 hours. Probably that was my longest run in the last like couple months. But I did end up taking off like a full week after that, just because I had really bad DOMs. And I was also just like generally sore and wanting to be as smart and protective as best I could too, which I don't think that would have been something I would have done like in a normal racing year. Yeah. I probably would have like trained through that more, but this felt like an effort worth recovering from. Yeah. I will say, however, though, like after RUFA, that's when you got injured. You got injured right before RUFA.
Right before RUFA. Yeah.
And so if you look at my Strava graph gets pretty sad in the month of February. And some people were like, oh, is that because you got pregnant? I'm like, no, it's because Mike was injured and I do all my running with Mike. So I became a lump.
Yeah, your mileage is more correlated with my mileage than it is with how many
weeks I am.
Weeks pregnant you are.
It's sad but true.
Although I'm sure that there's an inflection point there somewhere now where I'm starting to run a little bit more again myself now, starting to feel a little better.
And then like I had my biggest mileage week in a while last week, and I think it's only because you were running more.
Yeah. So hopefully now we kind of sync up for at least a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then
I've had a trick
sooner or
lately,
later.
though, to keep up with the boys. So we've been doing a lot of road running as Mike's been recovering from his ankle injury. And that means a lot of like Sugar House park laps here in Salt Lake, Liberty Park laps. And so now I need my old pair of super shoes to keep up with the fast boys, which my days are probably limited with them.
And the V-Sling.
Oh, and the V-Sling. So we are not sponsored by the V-Sling here in the Monagle household, but we might as well be, because in addition to belly bands, if you Google a V-Sling, it's exactly what it sounds like.
Great name.
Yeah. The one day I went on a run and I told Mike, and I was like, I just feel like my groin needs like lifted up in support. Yeah. So I started Googling like, what are possible things that can like lift your groin for running? And I found the V-Sling.
Well, and you tried tape. Like
I did try a KT tape.
Yeah, KT tape.
Which
didn't work so well.
No, lasted like 30 seconds. But I bet you if you're a PT and you know how to apply KT tape well, it would actually do the trick.
Not just sitting in the passenger seat of the car in the parking lot
like
of the
half
gym.
Naked by the
having
gym.
me stand outside the door so that the person in the pickup truck doesn't see you while you're trying to tape.
Hey, these are the things they don't tell you about this.
They don't.
Yeah, so I ended up Googling contraptions for keeping my pelvis in one piece and my musculature all in ligament. It's mostly the ligaments. So one of the main pregnancy symptoms is called pubic symphysis dysfunction, PSD, which is like the joint that's like right down like the center of like your pubic bone area, pretty much. So like with relaxin, the hormone that gets released during pregnancy, it gets like loosey goosey. And my pelvis, I think 1 in 4 pregnant women experience it, and I'm sure it's exacerbated by running. But the V-Sling has helped out so much. So I've been wearing that for like the last like probably 3 weeks.
Because there was maybe a week or so there, right, before you got the V-Sling.
Yeah.
It's just the best name. Like, it's V-shaped.
Yeah.
But like,
they should have thought about this a bit.
I don't know if they call it a V-Sling because of the shape.
Yeah.
Or because of,
No, I think it's because of the shape.
But anyway, there was like a week or so there where I think you maybe were starting to feel like this could be sort of the beginning of the end of your running while pregnant. Yeah. Right? Like, it didn't feel good at all.
No. Especially on like downhills, which was sad because I like to go uphill and downhill.
Yeah.
Flat felt like okay, but it wasn't great.
Yeah. But now V-Sling is in the picture, and it's like,
it's changed the game.
It's bought us at least a few weeks, right?
I know, yeah. So
yeah,
hopefully a bit longer. But what they tell you about pregnant running too is like you just have to be willing to adapt and change every day of the week. Like your body just might not feel good one day, but it might also start feeling like decent out of nowhere a couple weeks later.
Right.
So I feel like I'm gonna keep going until I can't, or until my body tells me no.
Yeah, and it's like a very individual experience, right? Like some people are running marathons in the 3rd trimester. Some people are running themselves to the hospital for their own delivery.
Some people, who was it? Down in Provo, she ran like a 5-minute something mile while 9 months pregnant 2 years ago.
Yeah, maybe that'll be you. Yeah. Maybe it won't,
No, all you need to do is give me an excuse not to run as much, and I will take it. So that's been my current existence lately. But yeah, it's been a fun journey so far.
Yeah.
What has changed for you since finding out that we're pregnant? Anything?
What a privileged question, right? For me to be able to answer. What has changed for me? I mean, sometimes my nights are interrupted when you wake up because you have a shooting hunger pang or something in the middle of the night. You'll wake up starving.
I think my problem too is like when I'm up in the middle of the night, I want everybody to be up with me. So like usually I'll scoop the cat up, put her in my arms so she's up, and then like I make like until you wake up.
You want pity.
I want pity. Yeah, I want everybody to know that I'm not sleeping well.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel like when I'm throwing up, in the toilet, like when I'm sick.
You want everybody to know how sick you are.
Yeah. I feel like I get sick sometimes. Like I get like stomach bugs weirdly often, it seems like. And yeah, sometimes I'm just like wake up in the middle of the night and I'm in the bathroom throwing up, and
I always
I
tell
want to
you,
make sure that you
yeah.
know that I'm throwing up.
I
So
tell you scream at the toilet.
yeah, it's kind of a loud exercise.
But yeah, what has changed? Because I do think there's been like some adaptations in some ways, like when you've thought about your race calendar, when you've thought about like
Yeah,
race planning. That's something like you've been doing a lot of lately, and
yeah,
you've had to say like no to some like exciting like photography opportunities too.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's like, again, it's all, I guess it's all relative, or the perspective of like what the impact of the changes are. But I, yeah, I mean, we've obviously both made some changes for travel plans and race plan. Like, we're not going to go to UTMB this year, either to run or to work from a photography or otherwise standpoint. That's been a pretty cool and big part of most of our last several years. I mean, I love, like, we have so many really, really good friends who, like, right here in Salt Lake City, who we run with multiple times a week, who are either new parents or also expecting parents. And it's really fun to be able to talk with them, and connect on that level. We obviously have a bunch of nieces and nephews, who have come into our lives in the last, I guess, 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. And so it's been something new to connect with our siblings and our families on a new level. And yeah, I don't know. It's like, not much has like changed. I'm just really glad it's been like my goal in life to be a parent. I think it's both of us, right? Like, that's always been like the goal in life. And it just feels like we're now one step closer to that reality. So yeah, celebrating that. It's not much of a change so far, though, for me.
Are you nervous about anything?
Am I nervous? I haven't felt any nervousness yet. No. Are you nervous?
I don't think so.
Honestly,
I'm mostly nervous when I just like look at. So Maddie Hornig, Brett's wife, shared her awesome like checklist with me of all the things that she researched before she gave birth their baby.
Gave a baby to the world.
And I just get nervous looking at that sheet, just being like, there's so many things that I don't know.
I think I've told some people when we have shared our news that I think I've told some people that I'm really excited to be a terrible dad.
That's cool.
But not, and then they're like, oh no, you're going to be a great dad. I'm like, I know I'm going to be a great dad, but like, some people are going to think I'm a terrible dad, I bet. And like, I think just what I mean by that is like, I think it's going to be so much fun. And I think we're going to have our own ways of being parents that nobody can tell us how to do. And I don't know what those are. And, there's no way of telling yet, but like, just as we grow into our roles as parents, I think that, as with everything else in life, we're going to probably find our own way to do a lot of things.
Totally.
And so I think, like, obviously there's no right or wrong way. Well, there's a lot of wrong ways, but like, there's not just one right way to be a parent, is I guess what I mean by that. Right. And so, we already know that some people are way more organized than us, and, way more put together than us, and way better time managers. So like, we already know that.
Yeah.
We know what our weaknesses are.
But we also know what our strengths are.
And so I don't, like, that doesn't make me nervous. It doesn't make me nervous to see like a really squared away or like really put together, like well-planned kind of parenthood. It just makes me excited to see what our own way of doing it is going to be. And like, some people might think it's terrible, but I guarantee you we're going to be having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you brought up a really good point about just like the role models we have here, specifically like around us in Utah, and then also like our family as well. But we have so many examples around us at various ages And it's really cool to see how people do things
Yeah.
and to like take away the little things that they do. Like, oh, that's awesome. And like when we have kids, I can't wait to do that with them.
I know.
And just like what we have access to here. Like whenever people ask us if we'll stay out in Utah forever, like we're both from the East Coast originally, all our family's on the East Coast. And every time we go back to the East Coast, we're kind of nostalgic for it.
Oh, yeah.
And we could picture ourselves living there. But then we get back here in Salt Lake City, and I always tell people, I'm like, this is a great place to raise a family.
Oh, totally.
From like the proximity to things around us here, just in Salt Lake proper, to the mountains, to Moab and St. George, and like all the little road trips you can go on and go camping just
I can't
so
wait
easily.
to go camping with this. Have we said it's a boy?
Oh, yeah, it's a boy.
I don't know if we've said that. I'm very, very excited to go camping with this little dude. That's going to be really fun.
Oh, we're excited.
Yeah. We were both hoping for a girl, by the way.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, that's tough. It's I wouldn't. I guess not. I guess hoping is.
It's a weird thing to
It
talk
is a
about,
weird
right?
thing
Like,
to talk
like
We are
maybe
both
phrase it
feeling some like major girl energy for sure.
Yeah.
And like, if you are a parent or thinking about becoming a parent, like there's a lot of, you have names like listed down places too, and like girl names are so easy to think of, and they're really cute. So I told Mike during this pregnancy, like the one thing I don't like is unsolicited advice when it comes to like how to do things.
So drop in the comments
some solicited names
Yeah.
in the comments.
Slide into the DMs.
Some boy names.
No, we had girl names. Like we could have had like triplets girls, and we would have had first, middle, last names for all.
Actually,
of them.
no, last name's a tough one. Mike and I, we have different last names. I've never taken his last name, and he talks about
I've
like
never given her my last name.
he talks like once a month about switching his last name to my last name. But
all the girl names we liked better with Yingling as the
Yeah.
last name. So that was the plan.
and now all the boy names we like with Mike's last name. So
You do.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I could still go either way, I think, for a lot of them. But anyway, we could have had 3 or 4 girls, and we would have had first and middle names for all of them.
Yeah.
But then we found out we're having a guy. Then we found out we're having a boy and
A little guy.
a little guy. And it's just he's gonna be anonymous.
Yeah,
Like just gonna be an
probably for a while.
anonymous person
Yeah.
because we have no idea what to call him.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We always do.
Yeah.
Just wanted to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, John G, for all the support on the podcast. I've been loving the Women's Sun Chaser 50 hooded long sleeve shirt. It's been an awesome addition to my SPF long sleeve shirts, and I'm a huge fan of wearing my sun protection, not in sunscreen, because I just sweat it off anyways. This shirt has been super wicking and lightweight, and I've been really impressed with the fabric so far. It's kept me cool. It's helped me temperature regulate, but also kept me sun protected. So big fan of this shirt. Don't forget that you get 10% off of your John G order with the code Trail Network. Thanks again for listening to the show. And Leah and Mike, we are so excited for you guys and everything that you have coming up next. So from all of us at the Trail Network podcast, we're all thrilled. Back to the show.
Well, we talked about nervousness, excitement.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay. Back to nervousness.
No, I'm not. I
Okay.
can't. No, honestly, I can't. Nervousness is not. Anxiety is not an emotion that I have felt yet
In your life?
in during this pregnancy. With respect to this pregnancy,
Okay.
other than I think there's the very natural anxieties that come with the health of a pregnancy,
Mhm.
right? Because you can find out so early. But of course, sometimes that can be too early almost, like things can go wrong. It's not always what you expect necessarily.
Mhm.
So there's the anxiety that comes with just the health of the pregnancy as we progress through it. But other than that, as far as being a parent, I have not. Those are not emotions that I have experienced yet. So I would not be surprised if that changes. But
Yeah.
that's honest so far. But something I'm really excited about is like being competitive with other parents. Because like we said, we've got a lot of great friends and family who are new and or expecting parents in our life.
I feel like you're about to enter this era where you just create beef with so
yeah,
many other
no,
parents
I
out
think
there.
I'm going through a phase of like, I just really like stirring stuff up with people. So yeah, like, dude, I can't wait. I hope that Sloan and our anonymous boy like have some of the same interests in life or play the same sport or something someday. Sloan is obviously Jules and Finn's daughter, who will be
1 year.
About a year?
About a year.
Yeah, right about a year older than our son.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I look forward to finding ways to be competitive with Finn via our children.
I think Caleb and Morgan, I think, are 3 months ahead of us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. With a boy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then all the other, obviously, babies, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds in our life. Yeah. What do you think is, I'm curious, what do you think is going to be the most annoying thing about me being a dad?
Oh, I haven't put much thought into this. That's a great question, though.
Like either the way I raise the child or...
No, I think you're going to do a great job raising the child.
But do you think I'm going to do anything annoying?
No,
Definitely.
Let me think. Well, you've got some pretty bad, just like, they're not even dad jokes. They're just things your dad would say to you growing up that like you now say to me because there's no one else here to listen to you.
Yeah.
So you're going to have little things that I know you'll say to the kids.
Yeah. It's wisdom though.
Sure.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think there's anything. I will say, like, when we first started dating, I remember I had a nightmare. This was before we were married or anything. You were on a deployment and I was like, we were very early in our relationship, but I would say like early on in our relationship, we saw our futures together.
Yeah.
And like, I think upon meeting, we were pretty much like picturing what our futures would be like together. And I remember learning just like how much and how invested in ultra running you were at that time. And I remember like laying in bed at night, one of these nights, probably like 10 years ago, just being like, I'm just picturing us having kids and like Mike's going to be out on this long training run. I might be home with the kids and you might be gone like longer than I quote unquote want you to be on a given day. And I think that's going to be the thing I'll probably likely get most annoyed with.
But when you were having those thoughts, you didn't know that you were also going to
No, I didn't know that I'd also be an ultra runner. But yeah, it's funny how the times change.
Yeah.
But I would still say, like, you like training a bit more than I do.
Yeah, I do.
And like your weeks you train more in a week than I do.
Yeah.
So something we've talked a lot about though is like, we know that every pregnancy is different. Every, raising a child is different for everybody, but like, what will the return to running and training look like as new parents? And something we've both chatted about a lot over the last like bit is like coming back after pregnancy is like with like a road marathon block.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty efficient and like we can do that and like kind of probably succeed at some of the goals we have for the marathon in like a short training week.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Probably a lot more treadmill stuff is what we talked about too, right? Like,
yeah. And I will say like there's pros and cons of having both partners in a relationship be invested in a sport that is so time consuming. It's tough. And I think there's also the counter argument that it's really tough to have a partner that isn't in the same sport as you, like investing this much time. So I think something that's nice about it is we do have this mutual understanding of what we need to accomplish in training to meet our goals. And we have that mutual like respect for each other there.
Yeah.
I think something we have on our side here in Salt Lake City is a community to like support us in doing so.
Yeah.
And a lot of like young families too, to like help out. And like, I have people to run with all the time and you'll have people to run with all the time. And we can like kind of have like communal
swap off the babies.
Which
we've
really
talked about that a lot
that.
with our friends about like, all the moms and dads who are runners who can hopefully get together bring the young children to a certain house for a Saturday or whatever, and maybe half the group watches the kids while half the group runs for a couple hours and then swap in, swap out.
And I think that's being that all of our family is on the East Coast. Like I grew up in a small town where my entire family was in that town. My mom told me on the phone the other day when I was talking about our house and I mentioned having a guest room at our house here. She's like, wow, we never had a guest room in our house growing up. I was like, yeah, but who was staying? Literally everybody, all your family lived 5 minutes from you.
Yeah, and there were 4 daughters.
Yeah, so there was no room for a guest room. But it's just those times were different, sure, but being so far away from all of the family that could support us, it kind of requires a community, and I'm so grateful for the one that we have here, even before we go through the ringer of parenthood.
Is that something that you're nervous about? Is like, not having family close by? Because that's something that I guess the rest of all the nieces and nephews we've seen so far have family close by, at least within a couple hours, 2, 3, 4 hours max. Some of our friends have that too. We will not. Our closest family will be like a 4.5 hour flight away, right? Is that something how do you feel about?
Our moms really like us.
Yeah.
And I think they'll spend a good amount of time out here. But I do have the not issue. I have 2 sisters that are also either just delivered a baby or pregnant right now. So my mom's going to have to choose wisely of which daughter she wants to help out.
Yeah.
I live in the nicest place. So she might choose me. And I'll be a first-time parent. They won't be a first-time parent.
They're experienced.
They're experienced and I won't be.
Yeah.
So she'll be like, these 2 need all the help they can get.
Yeah. I'm sure she'll knowing your mother, I'm sure she'll figure out a way to make everybody happy and
see everybody.
And make herself happy and see everyone she wants to see. Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be kind of cool I don't know. It'll be different from a lot of what we see is parenthood and new parenthood with a lot of close family involvement, like proximity. I think it'll be interesting to see how we respond to kind of the opposite.
Yeah. There's
a daycare, like a maybe 4-minute walk right around the block, right? So that'll be really convenient once it's daycare time.
Once they answer my emails.
Once they answer. Shout out to Compass Daycare, right?
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
Compass Daycare.
Compass Daycare.
And preschool.
Check your email.
Yeah. Cottonwood Heights.
What else?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what my season that could have been will be.
Yeah.
I was signed up for a lot of things this year. And honestly, something I didn't love was I kind of knew what I was likely going to do or end up pulling my name off of, and the things that I would stay in or maybe run a shorter distance at. But I'm really excited to be involved over the next, let's say, 5 months or so in different ways in the sport. For example, participating in the media at Western States for the first time.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
For sure.
I'm so excited for that. And you are trying to put on a race this summer, potentially, if you can get your permits to go through. So ideally becoming first-time race directors, if all goes to plan.
Could become a race director and a father in the same year.
Yeah. So I think just finding other avenues that bring me joy in this sport has always been something that's really important to me. And that's why I love doing the podcast. That's why I love helping Mountain Outpost with commentary, helping Finn with different pre-race episodes, things like that. It gives you another lens into the sport, and it really opens your eyes to different personalities, and you form just a much larger community. And I've had so much fun doing that. So I'm excited to continue doing that this year, and then also support you in hopefully some big fun efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Talking about your race schedule, we wanted to start a family. We wanted to have kids. And so this pregnancy, it didn't come as a surprise. This was something that we wanted. But you can't plan for a pregnancy, right? It's kind of a strange and maybe a little bit taboo. I don't know. I feel like people don't talk about it that much, right? But I guess as a specific example is Hard Rock. You found out you got into Hard Rock. Was it the morning after you found out you were pregnant?
I found out I got into Hard Rock the night I found out I got a Hard Rock into Hard Rock in the morning, and I found out I was pregnant in the night.
Oh, so it was okay. So it was
Yeah.
so Hard Rock came first
Yeah.
later that day. But also when you got into Hard Rock, you were already hoping to be pregnant or to hopefully get pregnant sometime between then and Hard Rock, ideally, right? Like that was our plan in life. But you can't plan for that. Like, and so of course you kept your name in that lottery. You signed up again for Western States and UTMB and everything else. Like, I don't know. Talk about that. Like, it's kind of a strange thing to talk about. I don't feel like people talk about it that much.
No, it's tough because you also don't know how your pregnancy is going to go.
Exactly.
So like you might not have a successful pregnancy and you might like miscarry early on. And I mean, like, who's to say what kind of like emotional state I would be in that case too, but let alone physical state. But you almost like plan for those scenarios as well. So I think in my mind, we were planning the season and I was thinking like, I really wanted to do Trans Gran Canaria this year.
Yeah.
Like that race just really excites me. And I feel like it's one that plays to my strengths. And I told you in the fall when we started trying, like, if we don't get pregnant by January, we'll probably like put it on hold for like a month or two so that I can do Trans Gran Canaria and then we'll pick it back up. Right. And that was the only race I felt that way about this year. Yeah. Like everything else, I was like, I'm happy to table it. But yeah, you almost plan for, so like you're almost like thinking of all these like plan A, plan B, if this, then what, like maps in your mind. And I think that's a lot of what I was doing for the last, I mean, especially like December through March when things are always like up in air a little bit and you're just like, everything is so uncertain in pregnancy. And that's why like the deferral policies that races do have are like very nice, but also at the same time, like there's a lot that can go wrong and like aren't accounted for too when you think about deferral policies at times too, or even like runner contracts with like performance and things like that of just protecting the female athlete a bit more. So like, you know, whether the athlete is pregnant, I think there should be things written into clauses about like miscarriages too. Yeah. Because I think that is something that is glaringly missing in a lot of our policies currently.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're getting a bit tired of answering the questions and almost like, I don't want to say pretending, but like for the last 2 months, let's say, we've known that you're pregnant and a lot of people have been asking you, some people have been asking me. Like, I mean, when we were at Jackpot Ultras down in Vegas a few weeks ago, for example, at least 2 or 3 people asked me, so is Leah really doing, you know, Trans Gran Cocodona, Western States, you know, Hard Rock, UTMB? Like, which ones is she really doing? Is she really doing all these? Like, what's her priority? And you know, like you said, at that point, we don't, like, you know, we're still obviously very hopeful. We know you're pregnant. We're very hopeful that it goes well and that there isn't a miscarriage or anything like that. And so we kind of had to sort of, I don't want to say pretend, but it's like assume almost that like, yeah, that's the plan. Like Leah's priority, I was like, Leah's priority is like, she really wants to do Cocodona and like Hard Rock is a priority for sure. But it's weird. And so like, I know you were put in that position way more than I was. And
it's interesting too. I think in pregnancy, often people are like, you don't share your news until like 12 weeks. And you don't, for one reason or another, because often it's considered like your risk goes down a bit after that 12 or 13 week mark. But at the same time, like you should share whenever you want to.
Right. And with who you want to.
And with who you want to, yeah. And I think that's kind of like where we found ourselves settling here is like sharing with like close friends and family, like rather early on, I would say. And then just like navigating the space that is like a wider net, which we find ourselves in. I found that really, really, really tricky. But also like just wanted to share when I felt ready to share, especially like once I talked to like brand partners and things like that, and making sure like I talked to the race organizations that I planned on deferring or like rescinding my entry in. But yeah, it's tough. And I really feel like you almost have to take this mentality of like full steam ahead, still planning for whatever the schedule might be. Not quote unquote, just in case, but like so you have that for the future. And it's like, we're kind of forced to think that way in some ways with like how tough it is to get into races. But I will say like extreme thank yous to the race organizations that I have had to withdraw from, like Western States, Cocodona, Hard Rock, Trans-Gran Canaria too, just with good deferral policies. Like Hard Rock is 5 years, Western States is lifetime, which is awesome. I think UTMB, I need to look into theirs. I think there's like at least 3 years. And yeah, just really welcoming. And I know this wasn't always the case. I think back in like 2017-18 timeframe, Western States didn't have a pregnancy deferral policy. And if they did, it wasn't solid. But I still think there's room to grow though. I think like just learning a bit more about like the different experiences that women can experience as they go through pregnancy. There's just so much that we need like more in-depth policies, I think, to protect women a bit more.
Yeah. Well, thinking then about how this race schedule maybe would have played out is kind of fun, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I can say this as a fan of yours and of the sport.
I'm a fan of you.
I think that you not being on the Western States starting line this year, then, like, I think it's kind of safe to say that sort of opens up a top 10 spot. Yeah. Because I think if I were making bets on Western States this year with you on the starting line, I think that I would have like 90% odds of you finishing top 10 at Western States again. Like you've done it 3 times in a row and you've gotten faster each time. So I don't see any reason not to expect that had you been running Western States again this year, you would get faster yet again, which would likely have you top 10 yet again. With the caveat though, again, just as a fan of the sport, watching this stuff unfold, you've gotten faster each year, but you've also lost places each year, right? Like 6th, 9th, and 10th, I think. Yeah. So somebody could argue my point, I guess.
No, if anyone's listening and they want to know how to get 6th through 10th at Western States, hit me up.
I'll hit you up. I just think that's fun though to think about, like, and I wonder, I assume you have to be thinking about, like, you know, what could have been this year, and I'm sure you're excited to see how it plays out. Yeah.
Oh, it's so easy. Like, it's so easy to look at any race that you're not in and be like, if I was running this race, this is where I would be. Yeah. But like you don't always have your perfect day at these races either. But I know for a fact I'm going to be doing commentary this year being like, oh man.
Yeah. But it's fun to think about and for me, just as a fan of the sport, it's kind of fun for me to think about, like, you know, when we have the women's race lining up at Western States in June this year, I don't know. I have 10 spots to sort of try to predict or see how they're going to play out. Whereas one of those I would have otherwise thought was pretty much already occupied by you.
Oh, thank you.
At least 90% odds, I'd say.
Yeah. No, that's kind. No, I feel confidently the same about that. And it's cool to think too, like, part of the reason I put my name back into Western States this year was, like, honestly in hopes that we would be able to start a family and I could return to Western States on my own terms. Yeah. So being able to return to Western States in a year where I feel like really ready to execute my best race, because I still think like my fastest Western States is out there and I haven't run it yet. So I'm excited to put it all together and really dedicate like a season to that sometime in the next like 5 years.
Do you think that, and obviously you can't actually answer this, but just how you feel right now and where you're at mentally and based on your experience in the sport, and what you've seen maybe other people do or otherwise, like, do you feel like, do you believe that your fastest and best Western States is ahead of you as a mom?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think something I always tell myself and I tell you is I work really well under deadlines, and I actually do worse whenever I have like unstructured time. So I think that's something I'm actually really looking forward to as a parent, is like having so many constraints in my life that it forces me to be very purposeful and like direct with my time and my training. And I think I'll be able to get a lot more out of myself that way and have a lot more focused training than I've ever had before, when it has been a bit more open-ended, I'd say.
Follow-up question then. How well can you do at Western States as a mom? Whether that's time you can run or a place insert, however you want to interpret
I
that.
want like an extremely hot Western States year. Like I feel like we've just been given easy years last.
All right, so we need a scorcher.
And like I have told you and I've told myself this, and I've like gone public with the fact like I know I can like podium Western States. I know I can. I just haven't yet. I haven't even freaking top 5, but I know I can. And I know that like I just need to line up like a really consistent training that like I'm really proud of. And then also all the controllables, especially all the like the new controllables that are coming to the table. I'm not somebody that like optimizes shoes or like completely optimizes nutrition and all those things. I definitely optimize cooling, but those other things are things like I haven't really tweaked yet. So I think there's a lot of gains to be had there that I haven't even scratched the surface with yet, and won't for another year here. So, but yeah, I think the sky's the limit.
Okay. Follow up to that follow-up question.
Goodness, it's almost bedtime.
Do we have a time limit here?
No, we're good.
Cool. Well then, quick follow-up to that follow-up is you've lost a place at Western States each of the last 3 years you've run it, right? But gotten faster, which is representative of what the sport has been doing as a whole. So do you feel like it's going to take like a quantum leap in order to top 10, top 5 or podium again, in the future at Western States?
Yeah, I always do wonder about that with like the moms who have taken like some time away from the sport and then are like trying to like re-enter in almost like a completely different sport now in some ways.
Different era.
Yeah. And I feel like it looks very tough for them. I feel privileged in that like I've been in the competitive sport for the last couple of years, but I do feel like you're almost like missing out by not being on these start lines, like learning from the best and like racing at that like high octane level that people are. So I think there's some disadvantages obviously to kind of like being out of the game for a little bit, but I think everybody just lifts everybody up right now. Like you level up when you race against every woman in the sport right now, and it's almost impossible not to. It's like I remember Caitlin Gerbin gave me advice a couple years ago when we were lining up at the World Championships in Thailand, and she's like, "You're gonna want to go out harder here than you ever had before." And she's like, you got to put your nose in it, and you just got to like go at a pace that you don't think is sustainable and just like maintain this and not maintain that high effort the whole time, but just like put your nose in it, get your place, and like hold that place.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of what the sport is becoming, is like less of that conservative move up, but more of like, I'm confident in my abilities. I know what I'm capable of. I need to start this race a little hot, but then I can like settle in, keep my foot hovering on the gas the whole time, and just like race people. And I think the level of competition is really like bringing out the best in people. And I'm excited to kind of re-engage with that after babies.
And I think we see some really, really strong runner moms.
Oh, so many
out there who I'm sure there's a lot of examples that would say themselves that they've probably had their best performances as moms.
Like Esther Chilog,
I'm thinking of Esther.
Rachel.
I'm thinking of Rachel.
Katie Asmuth, everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, I don't know. I think also from my perspective as a fan,
Ragna.
I think that if you return to Western States, maybe a year, maybe 3 years from now, whatever it is, somewhere in that window, like, or maybe it's longer than that. I don't know. Like, I have no doubt that F10 at Western States will be no slower than 17 flat.
I know.
Or 16:30, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I think that you'll be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Which is kind of a cool thought.
Oh, that's going to be fun to attempt.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Dream in life.
What?
I'm sure I've shared this with you before, but like, I think for years, well over a decade, I've had this dream of life. I've seen people finishing ultra marathons like with their children.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is it.
And
Crossing the Western States finish line with
whether it's Western,
Yeah.
like that's my dream in life,
Yeah.
right? Is to just be able to like drag a whining 2-year-old across a 100-mile finish line or whatever. Like that. I mean, there was a photo I had from the DC Peaks 50 miler last year of like of a little girl. Her dad had just run the 50 miler and he was collapsed at the finish on the ground in the grass. And I got this photo of this little girl who was his daughter, just tugging on his arm, trying to like, presumably, I like
get
to
him
think,
out of there.
like, come on, I've been out here for 12 hours today.
Yeah.
Like, let's go get ice cream or something. That like, whether it's that or whether it's me dragging our 2-year-old or like whatever it is, or like, I don't know, you see like Rachel and Tyler at Western States last year, like both running the race, both got to cross the finish line holding Lou.
So cool.
Like that stuff is like goal in life. And
I'm so excited.
yeah.
I think like seeing you and the little guy at like aid stations.
Oh man. Oh.
I think that's what will get me to the finish line. Like just those little
You think you'll be able to leave us? You think you'll be able to see us?
You asked me what I was nervous about.
Just
like, is there anything?
We're going to be bonding. We're going to have father-son bonding.
That is what I'm nervous
at the aid station at Robinson Flat. Some real father-son bonding happens at Robinson Flat.
You forget things even without a child. You're going to forget. Wasn't that Bandera where you like forgot my pack?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, we should cut the tape before we start.
Yeah,
comparing
like relationship scorecard.
Who's going to be the worst parents?
Well, thanks for joining. This has been really nice. Happy I could invite you to the living room here in our house to have you on tonight to talk about our new life news.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with the Trail Network pod listeners?
I don't think so. Thanks for listening or watching. Thanks for supporting the podcast. And mother of my unborn child is something I've always wanted to be able to say. So
Great.
It's been a pleasure being here with the mother of my unborn child.
Great. On that note, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.